This is Off the Record Podcast, and I'm your guest host, Sergey Ross. Here we talk to CEOs and venture capitalists about their entrepreneurial journey, how they jumped off the plane and, well, didn't crash. And today I'm here with Nick Adams, who didn't really know what he wanted to do when he was growing up, like most of us. Worked in a law firm through most of the college, ended up in joining a Boston startup for a 13-year run in sales and marketing, and then fast forward to today, he's a managing partner and co-founder of Differential Ventures. Nick, thank you for coming.
Great to be here. Thank you.
How long did you take? It took you from leaving sales and marketing, where you spent so much time, to being an actual VC?
It was surprisingly fast. The story is I was kind of winding down time at my last startup. I knew the company was going to be acquired soon, and assumed I'd be fired soon after that acquisition. So I'd gotten to the point where, I didn't grow up with any money, so I kind of had to make some to go out and take a big risk as an entrepreneur. And for me, that was actually, I was never a tech startup founder, but I was a venture capitalist founder. So it was in 2015, and I decided around that time I was going to go back to school. I'd done my MBA already, but I felt like I really wanted to do kind of a global finance, to learn more about becoming a true fund manager, and also just send the signal I was ready for something else to the market. And my first week in class over in Hong Kong, where I went to school, I said I was Nick. I worked for a tech company and was looking to make the move into venture capital. And one of my classmates' brother happened to be leaving a fund in New York. And a month later, I was hired at Flatiron Investors here in New York, and it was kind of off and running from there. I thought it was going to take me at least a year full time. It took about a month, so I was pretty lucky.
Well, there you go. State your intentions.
Exactly.
Have you considered entrepreneurial route, like starting a company?
No interest. I was really, despite not being a CEO of a tech startup, I had a lot of responsibility at a pretty young age, probably too much responsibility at a young age. And I was really tired and worn out as an operator, as we tend to call it, when you're, for whatever reason, when you're an entrepreneur and then all of a sudden you become a VC, you become called a former operator. I don't have any desire to do it ever again. I like what I do now much better, actually.
What's the downsides? What are the downsides of being a VC? Because this role is not for everybody. Oftentimes we see a lot of entrepreneurs, they sold their company, they exited well, maybe they exited a couple of times, they want to go into VC, they jump in and like, oh, actually, that doesn't look like a good fit.
Totally right. I mean, I see the biggest reasons why VC doesn't work for a lot of people is, A, you don't have a ton of control over any individual company. I'm fortunate to be a partner and leader of Differential. But as an investor and board member, you don't have a lot of control. And even when I sit on boards or an investor in a company, I usually tell the founders, we make recommendations and you make decisions for the most part, and it builds a good rapport. But a lot of people who are former operators, CEOs, really like to control. A lot of them are very passionate about one particular issue or topic. I'm not. I actually really enjoy being behind the scenes and being a coach as somebody who's made a lot of mistakes in the past. And helping to advise founders who are going through it for the first time and learning how to do all this stuff. And that part's fun for me. I enjoy that more so than being in charge of the day-by-day minutia of any one particular startup. And my passion is really around data and AI and machine learning and where it's going to go over the next 20, 25 years. And being able to have a VC fund with dozens of portfolio companies tackling various parts of that problem, that's fun for me. So totally. I can see it from just a different level rather than looking at any one individual problem within the whole realm of opportunities within machine learning AI.
Do you whenever founders reach out to you, do you take meetings even if they're not from the industry that you focus on? Or would you be more like laser focused, like, look, that's not really where I could help, that's not really where my expertise, reach out to so-and-so?
it's gotten to be impossible to take, even respond to every inbound and every pitch deck that comes in. So we just had our annual investor meeting, so these numbers are very fresh on my mind. Through September of this year, we received over 4,000 pitch decks from various places. We have a team of 5 full-time on our investing team. Across our team, we've taken over 1,900 meetings, individual meetings, not even multiple people on a meeting. So it's a lot, and that only represents meetings with about 25% of the companies that have actually sent us a pitch deck. So we narrow it down pretty quickly. What I tend to find is about 50% of the stuff that comes in just isn't in our domain at all. Either it's way too late. We're seed investors. We write checks of $250,000 to $2 million. So it's gonna be a pretty small round and pretty early. We get pitches for Series B or C companies, just not the right stage, or just totally outside of our thesis. We don't invest in hardware companies.
Like you said, people don't really do their research.
People don't always do their research. You check out our website, you'll know pretty quickly. And I get it. Some people are just trying to do a quick blast and hit a bunch of investors, but we can't meet everybody.
So you told me the last time we chatted, founders need to showcase their value, preferably in 5 slides. So like when you are pitching, provided you did all the research and you are a decent fit, like you're not showing the punchline on slide 40.
Yeah, it's a strange problem. I blame Shark Tank for this. I think everybody's watched the founders come out on Shark Tank and give these long narratives about the market and so forth, and sometimes it's like sitting through an MBA class or an MBA project about the background. And the reality is, if a VC is going to spend any time on your deck at all after the first 3 or 4 slides, and even more so take a meeting with you, they probably have some level of familiarity with the market and the problems. So you can get to that really, really quickly. And then, the shocking thing to me, or the frustrating thing for me, is sometimes I'll be going through this long deck and I'll be kind of losing interest, and I'll get to the end and see, my God, this company has like amazing traction for where they are, or their founders are superstars in this space. Like we need to meet these people, but you really want that up front. You think about 4,000 pitch decks across 5 people on our team. Somebody looks at all of them, but they don't all get a ton of eyeball time. So you want to get to the kind of hard hitting stuff right away.
I had an opportunity to work with a guy who was one of the VPs of strategy at a local bank in Canada, and he was like a master of like all those HBR, like Harvard Business School case studies. And you would prepare decks for him, and he would review it, and he's super knowledgeable in it. And one of the techniques he used, which kind of reminds me, or sort of reminds me of what you just said, is you have your front page, first slide, and he removes that slide and looks at you, and most of the time nothing happens. It's like
right.
If you take out the first slide, it's still fine.
Totally right. Yeah, it's funny. It's there are so many little techniques you can do. It's great. Sometimes it's like the old McKinsey approach of tell your audience what you're going to tell them what you want to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. It's a pretty good structure for a deck also.
What do you think, Nick? How much time, or how do you, if you're a founder, how much should you talk about or spend time on talking about the market and the market problem before you actually go into, hey, do you actually have any traction or and the actual value proposition? How much do you spend time on the higher level perspective?
I mean, I think if you're, in typical elevator pitch fashion, if I were to catch you on the street and pitch you my idea, I think you've got realistically, it's pretty well shown that people have about 45 seconds of attention span before they need a mental break. So I think you have to get to the point, if you're verbally giving somebody a pitch, or even if you're just kicking off your 30-minute long or 60-minute long presentation to an investor, I think you have to get it to the punchline within 45 seconds. Now, after that, you can let the conversation go wherever you want, or wherever the investor wants to take you, right? But if you can hit your high points of, what are we doing? Why is it important? And how is this team, this company, uniquely qualified to solve this problem? And then if you have 1 or 2 data points under that, or proof points under that, if you can knock that out in 45 seconds, then you've got a pretty good shot at letting the investor take you down the market opportunity, or asking more questions about the market opportunity, the size of the market, show you've done your homework, or other questions about the team, the financing, the traction,
Right.
whatever it is.
Have you had any presentations or pitch decks that stood out to you? You kind of look at it as a reference now that they were quite different than any other ones, because I mean they are all the same. They have all the same kind of flow.
Yeah.
And maybe something comes up to mind. If it doesn't, well, we can come back to it later.
Yeah, let's come back to it. I mean, I think it's interesting when people want to do something creative and try and stand out with their presentation, just in terms of style. But it's funny how much we're kind of programmed to interpret data in a very consistent and similar way. So it's like making a beautiful resume, right? If you make this great creative resume, but it's for the finance world or for a venture capital job, you might not get the looks that you want. If it's for a creative role, you might be okay. But it's interesting. I've seen the most beautiful decks kind of get passed over because they sort of confuse people who are used to seeing 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 pitch decks a year in a particular kind of cadence or format.
Well, there is a reason why everybody and the preferred storytelling structure is 3 acts. Is because our brain thinks that way. If you take out the setup, you kind of jump into conclusion or summary. It doesn't quite work very well. The brain
it gets
confused.
a little confusing, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Nick, you talked about the importance of, and something that entrepreneurs don't do enough is like getting out of the building. Like we have all the spreadsheets, we have all the Google charts, half of them are for free, and all the resources, but yet you still need to get out to get that learning.
No question. I say this somewhat jokingly, but one of the scariest things I'll see in a presentation or in a due diligence process is a beautifully, constructed Excel spreadsheet. It's great. I love people who can plan, and it's helpful as an investor and for reporting purposes and everything else. But it also scares me at the seed stage, especially when you have to get out there and roll up your sleeves and beg, borrow, and steal for your initial customers, and get people to come join your company for less money than they're used to making, and especially in today's competitive environment, Apple or Google will probably pay them $500,000 a year to come in as an engineer, and you got to get them to join a startup with a few $1 million in seed funding. It's tough. So I really appreciate the founders who understand the metrics and how to run a business and what to be looking for from a KPI level. But I probably have a bit of a bias towards those scrappy founders who just get out there and figure out how to get stuff done, and they'll put the numbers together on the back end.
Do you scan for that in the sense that how do you score? Let's say I don't know what your model is to score the founders and how convincing it is, but would you give them a little bit more if they actually went, if they did go out there and hustle to get the customers by hand effectively?
Yeah, definitely. I think, at the seed stage, you don't always have a whole lot to go on, right? And for us, and where we invest in a pretty technical sector, it's interesting because if you're kind of a really deep tech platform, we're probably looking for somebody that's got a PhD or really significant technical experience, and they don't necessarily need to have traction. They probably won't have traction, honestly, because the platform is so complex. They're probably investing in pre-revenue. Right. So in that case, we're usually looking for their technical experience, but also business savvy, either in the form of a co-founder or just in their own kind of unicorn. It's kind of a unicorn CEO or founder that can do both. But we're looking for that there. When we're looking at more of an applied AI solution, more of a vertical use case, then traction is pretty necessary, because usually in that instance, it's not the genius AI that's going to make the company successful. It's going to be good enough technology in a scalable fashion with just great, amazing early hustle ability to go to market and kind of arbitrage the the sales and marketing component of it. So that part's definitely helpful when we're looking at that type of a company.
Mm-hmm. What do you like? Do you look at other, like, what other, I would say, standout qualities do you find founders that you've invested in have? Besides the fact that they have passion, they think about the problem day to day. That's kind of a baseline, super necessary. But like, what are some? Do you have any other like things that stand out?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing to get to is the why. What's their motivator for doing what they're doing? Being an entrepreneur and candidly being a founder of a venture capital fund is a crazy thing to do. And you really have to understand why somebody is in it and why they're going to stick with it when the inevitable bumpy times come along. And it's amazing. Like there are so many different reasons why people are driven to do what they do, and it doesn't necessarily matter your background, socially, politically, demographically. Everybody's got a different motivating factor. But I would say, I'll blame Shark Tank for this one again, that we've kind of glorified the idea of being a venture capitalist, the idea of being a startup founder, and really underestimate. I think a lot of founders want to look like a founder or want to look like a venture capitalist, but don't always have a really good appreciation for how freaking hard it is day in and day out.
I think we should probably include, I don't know if Theranos should be on this list, but that was that was a big one.
That was a big one, yeah. And I do worry there's going to be more and more of that type of fraud. Maybe not necessarily at that scale, but so much money and things moving so fast. Right. Yeah, diligence is not what it used to be.
But that's right. Like, and I've spoken with quite a lot of VCs, and what they say is very interesting. Is this chain of diligence, in a sense that, like, if I'm a startup founder and I already have Benchmark invested in me, and then I'm coming to you and you are Sequoia, you're like, yeah, that looks pretty good. Like it's already like that fog almost. And if we look at the Theranos story, she had this partnerships. It wasn't Walmart. It was one of your biggest pharmacy chains. I forgot which one it was.
Walgreens.
Walgreens. And then when she was actually raising, it was like, oh, Walgreens, of course. So
right.
It's like that sort of chain that just messes everything up.
It sure does. I mean, I think we probably, as VCs, probably give each other too much credit. And I think the partnerships and the logos that go on a deck are sometimes really misleading. And it's critically important to drill down and find out what those relationships actually are. And in today's compressed fundraising environment, it can be hard to do because there might be another investor coming along that will write the check without doing any diligence because maybe it's Tiger and losing a $2 million seed investment doesn't really move the needle for them, but a $2 million investment for us is extremely meaningful, and everyone's important. So you definitely feel the pressure, and you just have to work faster to get to the answers that you need to get. But it's tough. It's a crazy environment.
Why do you think, Nick? Why do you think founders don't ask a lot of times what would happen if things don't go right? Like, how do you react as a venture capitalist, as a partner? Things went sideways, which they almost always do. Like, what would be your role in that? Why they don't spend time on that aspect or kind of consider that?
Human nature. Everybody, right. Nobody thinks that they're going to be the one that things don't go perfectly right. So every pitch deck we get is up and to the right. Nobody shows us the one that's kind of flat, or it's going to be a tough year ahead of them. It's human nature, but it's really important to know. And when you go into any relationship, it's you go through a legal process, you go through a term sheet process, and it's uncomfortable. But you're hammering out what happens when things don't go right, if things don't go right. And it's important to take that time and think through it. And, it's important for founders to understand too. And I just think most people are looking to either, fund their business and do all the other things that they have to do, building a product, selling, dealing with their employees, and keeping their lives on track. And if somebody's willing to write them a check and they don't have a whole lot of other options, which is often the case for seed founders, you're just going to kind of push things along and try and close it instead of just take a step back and think, is this really the right move for me long term?
Yeah. How many founders do you get, Nick, or gotten that actually would have been better off bootstrapped or could have done it in a bootstrapped way that would make more sense?
A lot. I mean, in terms of our portfolio, I don't think we really have any in the portfolio necessarily where I can say this would have been a better, kind of family business or bootstrapped.
Yeah.
I mean, bootstrapping to a certain point is always a great way to go because there's the chance it might just take off without outside funding. It's rare. It's extremely rare. But if you can do it, it's great. You can own more of your company for longer. And it just gives you some options. When you get on the VC track at the seed stage, like you're going down a certain path and you'll know pretty quickly, probably within 2 years or so, where you stand in the portfolio of a fund. And there's very limited optionality from there for your business. So
right.
I do have a bunch of pitches that I'll sit in on where I think it's a super cool technology product, whatever, and but I don't want to be an investor in it. I just don't think it can be big enough, or maybe don't think the founders are quite ready for what it means to be a VC-backed startup. Mm-hmm. So there's certainly times where I end a meeting and say, look, I'll be a customer here, but I'm not the right investor for you, and that's pretty sincere. Hard thing to say, but it's true a good amount of the time.
But it's better for long term.
For sure. Oh yeah, no question.
I was going to ask you, Nick, personal question or more personal question to you. You said one time at one point in your career you overvalued yourself, or you had that time when you had a different perspective on what you were offering. What was it about? Tell us that story or that whole situation. Yeah,
I think for me, you go through an interviewing process, right? This is back in my startup days before I became an investor, and you're interviewing and you have certain things in your mind that you want out of your career, yourself, your next company, whatever. And I had a few of those things in my mind, and I had an offer in front of me to be a VP of sales, and paid me some more money, gave me the title I wanted, got me back into early stage startup. But it was also just not the right fit for me, and I knew that culturally it wasn't going to be right. I really didn't love the product, and I thought I could fix it. I thought I could. I thought I could, communicate or change my way through the cultural issues, manage my way through the cultural issues. And I thought, if I could just be left to my own devices and sell and do my job my way, that, it didn't really matter if I didn't like the product that much or the market we're going after. And it just wasn't true for me. I probably gave myself too much credit. I probably gave my communication skills too much credit. I probably gave my leadership skills too much credit. I probably gave my sales ability too much credit at that point. And it's the wrong fit. And I had to address that pretty quickly. And I also learned that if I'm not passionate about something, if I don't really believe in what I'm doing and stand behind the product, I can't sell it. I'm not a good salesperson if I don't believe in what I'm doing. I'm actually a terrible salesperson. So through that, I definitely learned that there are some things you just can't fix. And you have to be okay with that, and it's probably, exponentially more true as an investor than even as an employee. I was just C-level person in this company, and I still couldn't move the needle in the ways I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. On this specific note, I was watching one of the guys who does film reviews. Seems like quite far shot, but he made exactly the same point. He basically does reviews on movies. His YouTube channel in millions. The guy's a phenomenal pro. But what he talked about is he said, look, if you want to do movie reviews, and there are a lot of other channels who do it, before you do it, go look at those channels and really see, could you actually go deeper and not just like rephrase and have basically the same conversation as everybody else? Because if you don't really have the knowledge and the interest, then just there's no point in doing it, because everybody does the same thing. And if you don't have that insane interest that is required that for you to send out, then just don't do it. And that was a specific YouTube example, but it's exactly the same thing I think applies to sales. Is if you don't have that interest, that other guy who just wakes up thinking about that product, then why it's not going to happen. Like, it's not possible.
It's totally true. Lesson learned the hard way for me, quite honestly. Yeah.
Right. No, that makes sense. So what are you excited about right now? What's going on? Like, what are some of the latest projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, we're kind of AI machine learning geeks. So there's a lot of good stuff happening there. I mean, it's funny, kind of the narrative around AI machine learning. People think it's so overblown and overhyped and everything else. And the reality is people are just learning how to do it in the right ways, and to actually deploy machine learning at scale and make meaningful algorithms and build them appropriately and monitor them over time takes a lot of work. And there are only so many pros in the world that know how to do this. So we're really still at the early days of machine learning and AI and meaningful algorithms being deployed at scale. So for us, we're looking at all sorts of new things, ranging from actual deep infrastructure architecture to make that possible faster and with more privacy, and then also looking at a lot of interesting other use cases, places where we haven't actually. Technology has been slow to adopt in some industries and even within some job functions within companies. So we've seen a bunch of things. We're looking at stuff in manufacturing right now, which is traditionally not one of our most comfortable areas, and seeing a lot happening in the financial services world. And and then one of the most surprising things for me is how much capital and time we spent in the HR and hiring space. And I think certainly COVID and remote work has accelerated progress in that world quite a bit. So,
right. Well, yeah, talent retention is a big challenge.
Huge. I mean, it's unbelievable. The war for talent right now is remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you really look up to in the AI world? Like, who's really crushing it? Could be anyone from small players to obviously Tesla, but that's like a standard pick. Who do you like?
I mean, this isn't necessarily who I like, but you have to give credit to what they've done. I mean, Facebook is off the charts, brilliant, scary use of AI. And in so many ways, I dislike Facebook, and I think what they've done is horrifying. But in terms of what they've done from a technical perspective is absolutely remarkable. On a less evil basis, I mean, what Amazon's done is super impressive. And I think it's less well documented, very private place. But my partner David came out of Renaissance Technologies, which is a notoriously secretive place. What they did 15, 20 years ago around becoming a quantitative hedge fund is to this day still amazing and groundbreaking.
Right.
And simple AI in a lot of ways relative to what's available now, but super impressive, just the fundamentals, the nuts and bolts of data science and how they went about it, doing what they did and returning whatever 40% a year for 15 years. There's some pretty impressive stuff out there.
And it's only going to accelerate, which is exciting for us and exciting for all the investors out there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm just want to make sure we have the right guardrails in place, and we like investing in responsible AI actually, and I think we have a healthy expectation on what the limitations of AI and machine learning might be. Not that we're opposed to trying things out that might break those limits or test those limits, because that's venture capital. But at the same time, I think there's things that can realistically happen in a much shorter period of time. That's really interesting, exciting, and a little bit scary in some ways. Do have my concerns about what some of the fallout could be, but generally speaking, pretty exciting next 5 or 10 years.
Totally. Well, we are out of time. Nick, I want to thank you. This was awesome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for chatting. This was great. Hopefully our audience will get some good takeaways from this conversation. Any final messages you want to add? Links, people, what they should check out? Anything, parting thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So you can always find me on LinkedIn is great. Just Nick Adams at Differential Ventures. I'm not a very active Twitter user, but I'm on there. It's just Adamamos11, ADAMAMOS, the number 11. And then our website is differential.vc. Those are usually the best places to find me.
Well, there we go. If you guys are looking for capital, reach out to Nick. And before you do, check out his website to make sure it actually is a good fit and it's the industry that he's working in, or at least considering. And thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. Don't take it for granted. We're out.